Hi, this is Les Posing, clinical psychologist, fear of flying specialist, and anxiety disorders as well. Welcome, it's mid-June 2021 here in Melbourne. Not too bad a day, but we're about to come out of a pretty severe lockdown because of a number of COVID cases that have been reported and free things up. This is our fourth lockdown since all this happened, and Melbourne people, as generous as we are in spirit, are getting really tired of these lockdowns. Businesses have been affected, people can't go to gyms, people haven't been able to go to restaurants. Many of you overseas, that is in the US and Europe, know about these things. Our vaccination rate is lousy. Our government has not done a good job because it thinks it's not in a race. We are. We are in a race to defeat this situation, and our government is not doing well, even though at the beginning we had been doing very well. Let's leave the politics aside. Today I want to talk to you in this video about an important component of overcoming your fear of flying or any other anxiety that you may experience, which you know is beyond what would be reasonable to experience, to the point where you're actually avoiding doing certain things, such as taking a lift or an elevator somewhere, not giving that speech, not giving that presentation, not driving through a tunnel or over a bridge, or going to various places. Avoidance is one of your biggest predictors of whether your anxiety is getting the better of you, as compared to just normal butterflies in the stomach, as we call it. In preparation for an important task, we're talking about actual avoidance, looking for excuses, trying to find plausible ways to say, I don't want to do this, and getting away with it. But in the back of your head, knowing that one of these days I'm going to have to confront this, because sooner or later I am going to be asked to do something or go somewhere, and there's no more excuses. So I want to focus on a phase of the flight which often can get overlooked. You'll get a lot of people spending time talking to you, as I have, as it turns out, about preparation for the flight, or what to do at takeoff, or what to do in the midst of turbulence. I'll do that, continue to do that too, but I want to talk to you today about what happens at the end of a flight, when after an hour or 14 hours or 15 hours of flying, as I often have to do from Melbourne to LA, and we'll do that again when COVID allows us to freely move around the world. It's 14 to 16 hours back from LA to Melbourne, about 14 to LA, and many people will experience what I'm about to talk about when that flight either is about to descend, that is, it's at what's called the top of descent, and you can hear the engines coming back a little bit, and the cabin manager announces, as you may know, we've commenced our descent into wherever it happens to be. Cabin crew, will you please prepare the cabin for landing? Okay, and that's when a lot of people experience a very important part of their fear of flying journey. It's a word that starts with R, and it can also occur, I'll get to what the word is in a minute, it can also occur if you're perhaps have been told by your company or by a friend, whatever else, oh, you need to get from here to there, and the only way to get there is, say, by plane. We're talking maybe Melbourne to Auckland, which is over the Tasman Sea. It's about 3.5 hours. And you're told you've got to be in Auckland at this time to do a presentation and show our investors what our research has been like. Maybe you've been told there's a wedding happening in a certain location, and the only way to really get there in a reasonable amount of time is to fly. And then all of a sudden, having worked yourself into a bit of a lather, 2 days before you're due to go, you get a phone call for whatever reason to say, we've delayed it, or it's been cancelled, or it's not happening. And what do you experience with that news of, just as you would experience with the news that the plane is coming in for landing, and then it finally touches down? What's that big word that starts with R? Of course, it's relief. Now, relief is not just the thought, oh, I don't have to do this, or the thought of the journey is about to end and my terror of being in this aircraft is about to come to an end. I can almost count down the 20 minutes, and I'll listen for the undercarriage coming down, and I'll watch all the signals from the flight attendants that say we're almost there. and I can anticipate what I'm going to feel like. And this is when many people describe that their sense of discomfort and vigilance starts to decrease, even though in the flight deck and amongst the cabin crew, their levels of arousal are increasing because their workload is going up. Navigating their way into the airport, in a very busy airport such as Los Angeles or JFK or Sydney here in Australia, the cabin crew are moving from service to safety officers, very visible. I mean, they're always safety officers, but now they're moving into very overt safety officers, walking up and down the plane's aisle or aisles, checking to make sure that seat backs are up, trays are up, there's nothing in the aisles, there's nothing at your feet. Emergency rows are clear of anything there, everything's in the overhead as it should be. So they've gone back into safety mode, and so their arousal levels are right up, whereas the passengers, their arousal levels are starting to come down. I am an exception to the rule. My arousal levels, if I'm flying into LA, especially if I have a connection to New York 2.5 hours after I arrive in LA, my arousal levels are going up. And you might say, why are your arousal levels going up? And that's because I want to get off my plane as quick as possible, because maybe I can make an earlier connection into New York, and instead of arriving at 10 p.m, I can arrive at 8 p.m. and meet my friends. But I have to make a connection. I can't book a connection earlier because the rules don't allow me to book a connection less than 2 or 2.5 hours. But if I arrive earlier, especially if there's been a tailwind across the Pacific and we get in a half an hour early and there's a gate ready for us, I've got an extra half hour up my sleeve to maybe make the next flight to New York or Chicago or Philadelphia or Washington, whichever it happens to be. So my arousal levels are going up, and in my mind I'm rehearsing what do I need to do to give myself the best chance of making that connection. Get all my stuff together as soon as we land, get all my stuff from the overhead, and start to slowly make my way forward where I can, and then make that dash towards customs and immigration, and then try and make the next connection. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, that's my dog Scout. Yes, Scout. In the last couple of years, when United, who's my preferred carrier across the Pacific, stopped flying 747s and 777s and began to fly 787s, they arrived at LAX at 6:30 in the morning before the main United terminal was really ready for operation. And so these planes arrived at the big international Tom Bradley terminal. Usually when there were 3 or 4 other internationals arriving, we all had to queue up. And then you have to go from Terminal 4 to Terminal 6-7. You can't walk it, you've got to take a bus. So any chance of an early arrival, meaning I can make an early connection, finished. But in the old days, you could just walk through, go through customs, and just go straight upstairs and see if you can make that connection. No more. Anyway, let's come back to the main subject, relief. Flying into LA can take a little bit of time. I just want to show you what it actually looks like. I'll just bring this picture up. I'll make myself a little bit smaller. There we go. So this is a flight of a Honolulu to LAX aircraft that I took the other night. It's about 9:30 p.m. on a weeknight, and the aircraft that we're interested in is coming in from Honolulu. This is the pattern it's flying. This is the aircraft that we're interested in. LAX is up here. Okay. So the standard arrival from the Pacific, from the the southwest, which is here, is over Catalina Island, which is here. There's Avalon, it flies over Avalon there, and goes in and then cuts in about here. Now this part here is known as the downwind leg, which means it's in the same direction as the wind is going down the runway, so it's downwind. And then the plane will turn somewhere up here and go left and go sort of northwest along here, and then join somewhere up around here and do another left-hand turn and do a final approach into LAX. So let me quickly show you what that looks like. So here's this is a video that I took many years ago, would you believe? There's the coastline. We're traveling along the coastline to the north. It's a 747. You can see these are the speed brakes, which helps to not just much slow the plane down, but give it a more rapid descent. You can see the flaps here are extending. On the 747, they're bigger than most planes. This wing is very big. This winglet here, by the way, is 6 foot tall. That should tell you how big the wing is. And you can see this could be a bit scary if you're not too sure, but you can see through the wing. You might think it's broken, but no, these are just the triple slotted flaps, and they will come out in stages. Okay, speed brakes go up to decrease lift, and they'll also, when the wheels touch down on the runway, these will also automatically spring up. This panel here is known as the inner aileron. It's really very big, and this is what steers the plane, helping to turn bank left or right at low speeds. At high speeds, the outer aileron also kicks in in a high speed turn, and sometimes you'll see these panels here popping up also to decrease the lift on this wing so that the wing on the other side pops up. So this is one of the main, you can look at this huge big intersection. This is when a naive person to America knows they've arrived in America when you see these huge interchanges. So now we've turned left, and this is on our final approach. You can see it's full flaps now. They sometimes will wobble, and we're now on a full approach into LAX. And just to remind you that LAX has 4 runways. Most international airports have multiple runways. This one has only 4 airports, east-west, almost east-west perfectly, and most times, 90% of the time, you take off to the west, and there's 4 runways, 2 to the north of the terminal, 2 to the south. Each one of those runways is devoted either to landing or to takeoff. The one that's closest to the terminal is usually involved in the takeoff. Let's just watch these speed brakes here popping up when the plane lands. There they go. That's automatically set to pop up, and that kills the lift on the wing and push the plane down. So combined with brakes on the wheels and engine reverse thrust, makes the plane pull up in time. Now this is on the far runway, and this is all the cargo area here, and then it has to cross the takeoff runway. In other words, the takeoff runway is closest to the terminal. You don't want the plane going under the pathway of an arriving aircraft and then turning right. So the takeoff runway is closest to the terminal. This plane has to wait, make sure the takeoff runway is clear, then it can cross the takeoff runway. We don't want what's called a runway incursion. So there you go. That's what's happening. This was taken quite a few years ago when United was, and Qantas for that matter, with flying 747s. That's no longer the case, and we're flying 78s and A380s when Qantas brings them back on force, but I think they might be flying also 787s, very popular aircraft. Let's come back to the main point. You need to rehearse what to do when you hear the words cabin crew prepare for landing and you feel the engine power coming back, because essentially our plane has turned into a giant glider. Yep, even a big A380. And pilots measure the gliding ability of these planes by how much altitude does it lose for each mile going forward. There's a ratio of how far down do you go versus how far forward do you go, and that's the glide ratio. Okay, and even a big A380 has a terrific glide ratio. Most of these planes can glide for 100 kilometers, about 70 or 80 miles, with no power at all. Of course, what happens is the engine power comes right back and the plane idles. You don't switch it off like in a car. You don't switch the engine off at the top of a hill. You have your foot hovering over the brakes. You don't exceed the speed limit. So in planes, they bring the power right back at the top, what's called the top of descent. The plane glides in, and then maybe at about 7,000 feet or 5,000 feet, depends on air traffic control, the power will come back on. You'll feel the power go whoop, and you feel like as if you're going up again. But what's been happening is that the plane is being held at a certain altitude before it can move to the next altitude, then the next altitude, the next altitude. Okay, it's in stepwise fashion. If you're lucky, you can go straight in, not such a busy airport, but something like LA or Sydney or JFK, Chicago, Heathrow, whatever it might be, you're going to come in steps. You may even go round, like so, big circles. What's called a stack. Aircraft come around like this. So once you get the knowledge that we're about to come in, you may start to experience a... And relief is not just the thought that the plane's coming in for a landing, my torment is almost finished, or my torment doesn't have to occur because my flight got cancelled, or the trip got cancelled, or it's been delayed, and I can, whoo! It's not just a thought, it's a very physical set of sensations. And the problem is, it's a form of avoidance, or it's a form of safety behavior to experience relief. And unfortunately, what it does is it convinces your brain that what I've avoided, by definition, must be dangerous to me. Otherwise, why would I experience relief, avoidance, safety? Somebody else without a fear of flying, who's told that the trip to do their presentation or the wedding, whatever it might be, has been cancelled, might experience disappointment, frustration, resentment even, that I can't go ahead and present at a conference. So just because something isn't going to happen doesn't mean automatically everyone feels relief. No, fearful people will feel relief. And you don't want to do this. You want to plan what to do when you hear cabin crew prepare the cabin for landing, and your task is to be ready to do the next 20 minutes, like I do. Prepare myself, what do I need to do, what's the right thing for me to be doing for the next 20 minutes, and it's not saying to yourself, thank God this is over, because that will just reinforce that I shouldn't have been here in the first place. You want to ask yourself, how did I do? If you've been watching my videos and you've been rehearsing, what else do I need to learn to better manage and keep in control my arousal levels so they don't go up too high? Okay? Don't have to worry about going too low. That's what footballers need to, or sports people need to worry about, that their arousal is too low, so they're not up for the game. You want it up at the right point. Imagine a weightlifter. Got to be up there. So you want to be rehearsing. When you walk off the plane, you want to be asking yourself, how did I do? Give yourself a rating. Was it as bad as I thought it was going to be? Is your primary question. Was it as bad as I thought it was going to be? Most of the time it will be, no, it was my anticipation that gets the better of me. And if I can plan more, my anticipatory distress, that is the worry before a flight, won't be quite so high. If it wasn't such a great flight for you, what didn't make it a great flight? What was it? Was it what the plane was doing? Because the plane's going to do what planes do. Bump around, be delayed, whatever it might be. Normal stuff that doesn't necessarily incur a fear response or a threat response. It's just normal stuff that happens. Business as usual. Going to be delayed, you know? So you need to be monitoring what you want to say to yourself. It should be something like, I did okay this trip. I thought it was going to be a 7 out of 10, but it only got to about 4. If it did get to a 7 out of 10, what was it about this flight that made it a 7 out of 10? That it was more scary than I thought it was going to be. What do I need to do to change me for the next flight? Each flight that you're going to do for the next little while, as much as it's getting you from A to B, whatever's happening at B, is also a little test, a little sampler, a little experiment for you to do, to ask, what do I need to improve? What sort of things do I need to keep changing so that I can accept that planes do what planes do in the air? They take off, they make noise, they move around, they rattle and shake, all perfectly normal and not unsafe, but perfectly normal. You've got to reach a new normal for you when the plane lands, which is, I did okay, I know what I'm doing here, I know what, or maybe on my return flight, I'm going to watch and practice and notice these things. And the more you practice and notice things, the better you're going to get at this, rather than keep on reinforcing flying is dangerous because I'm looking so much forward to the relief I'll experience when the flight is over, or should the flight get cancelled. I hope this is useful. Make some comments below, ask me some questions, and we'll elaborate a bit more. These ideas don't just work for flying, but they can work for bridges and tunnels and all sorts of other things, elevators and all sorts of other things, where your avoidance leads to you doing safety and thus relief. I hope you found this interesting. I hope it caused you to have a little bit of a change in your attitude and in planning what you're going to be doing. And I'll be having some more videos coming along very soon. Bye for now.